Welcome back to Quarantine Cooking with Vince. Donuts are like the Hobbit movies. There's not a lot there. Bagels are like the Lord of the Rings. They're older and way better. Let's make bagels. Start by getting your yeast in your bowl. I'm using sourdough starter. Feed your starter or your yeast with flour, half a cup, and half a cup of water, and a teaspoon of sugar. You have to use bread flour for this dish or it's not going to be a good bagel. Give this a stir. If you're using sourdough, you're going to want to let this hang out covered at room temperature for about 3 hours. If you're using traditional yeast, give it about an hour. 4 hours later, we have a bubbly little thick boy, much like me in middle school. To this, add a little bit of honey, 2 cups of bread flour, and 3/4 cup of water. Mix this all together until it forms a nice dough. Do your final mixing by hand. You're going to want a dough that kind of comes together and gently falls apart. Just like that.
Now is not the time for kneading, brother. That comes later.
Leave this covered for half an hour. Half hour later, add a good handful of salt. Without salt, bread tastes like paste, and we're not the kid that eats paste anymore. A spritz of water to help dissolve the salt. Then, using your hands, jab in all the salt. Now we're going to knead this for 10 to 15 minutes to help build gluten. Sorry to all my gluten-intolerant friends out there. The more you knead this, the more gluten you're going to get, and the more toothsome your bagel is going to be. Dig deep. Knead hard. After about 10 to 15 minutes, your forearm should be on absolute fire, and you should be able to feel the tough gluten there. That looks good. Gonna let this rest for 4 hours. 4 hours later, and my dough has doubled in size. If you're using normal yeast, it'll probably take a lot less time. Sourdough's a bit slow. Get this on a floured board and divide it up into the number of bagels you're gonna make. I like to do 8 because it's half of a half of a half. Who needs a baker's dozen? I'm sure as hell not a baker. Skeet skeet your flour. And down goes my dough. Here it is in roughly 8 equal parts. Let's make my balls. Take a piece, fold it up, fold it down. Spin it. Fold it up, fold it down. Keep going around and around and around until you get a nice, tight, little ball. Boom. Now look at my balls. To make these balls a bagel, go ahead and pinch right through the center. You make a little hole, then taking 2 fingers, go round and round like this. Make it a little bit larger than you think, almost prolapsed, because the gluten is going to retract back over time. Give these on a flour-lined baking tray, and give them a little bit more flour on top. Cover these in plastic wrap and let's put them into bed. Once upon a time. In the fridge, overnight they go. When you wake up the next morning, take your bagels out of the fridge. Also make sure to whisper so that you don't wake up your girlfriend, because she'll be mad. To see if your bagels are ready to bake, put them in a bowl full of cool water. If they float, they're good to go. Get a big pot of water on your dirty stove and bring this up to a boil. Also, preheat your oven to 450 degrees. We want to make sure it's good and hot. Make your everything seasoning with a pinch of salt, sesame seeds, enough garlic powder to keep the vampires away, poppy seeds, onion powder, and I also go in with a little bit of granulated garlic as well. Mix it all together. When your water's ready, go ahead and drop your bagels in, a couple at a time. We're going to boil these for 1 minute on each side. Gently flip your bagels after a minute, and then go for another minute. After your 2 minutes, bring them to a wire rack so they can drain a little bit of that water off the bottom. Immediately hit them with that everything bagel seasoning. Now that your bagels are all boiled, transfer them to a lined baking sheet and give it a little spritz of water. This helps activate the seasoning and will also give you a crispy crust. Bake these for 15 to 20 minutes depending on your stove. Make sure you spin it around halfway through so you get a nice even bake. You can also make killer cream cheese by taking the rest of your everything seasoning and mixing it in with a plain cream cheese. Your bagels are done when they've got a nice golden top and sound hollow when you knock on the bottom. Get them on a cooling rack to chill for a bit, cut in and enjoy. While these may not look all the same like Einstein's, they're going to taste like a level 3 genius made them. So get out there and make bagels.